on, y'all!
Hey everybody, it's Andy Kushner, host of The Wedding Biz, and this is another episode of The Next Level. I want to introduce my incredible co-host, Melissa.
Hi, guys.
And together, Melissa and I discuss the most recent guest interview and kind of bring out a few of the key highlights and translate them into specific tactical strategies for you to use to bring your business to the next level. And I want to mention before we go on that I was just in New York City and interviewed 3 people. They were incredible conversations. I am not exaggerating. I'm not being dramatic. Every one of them was so much fun and so informative. One was with Jennifer Zabinski, the planner. Very, very interesting conversation. We were on fire. And also, I got to have an Indian dinner with Andre Mayer, the photographer, and then interview him. And that was a very special conversation. Everyone, you are not going to want to miss out when we release that one with Andre. And I ended my trip by interviewing Cece Johnson, who everyone knows with invitations and stationery, and that was electric. I can't wait to release that one, and I was lucky enough to see Cece's new studio in New York City. Very impressive. She's very excited about it. And also had another meeting, and I'm not yet going to say who it was with, but it is with a major icon in the business who is going to be joining our network in the next couple of months. We will be announcing that eventually. Very exciting pre-production meeting. So a lot of good stuff for you all. How about Melissa, you have anything you want to share with everybody?
Yeah, actually, we got a great new review. I've been chatting with quite a few of you guys on Instagram this week and asking for reviews, and we got a really lovely one. So I wanted to share that with you.
Sure.
I think this username, Cambeth, I don't know what that is, but you left us this great review. I have enjoyed the candid reviews on this podcast. It's wedding industry driven, but insightful, even if you own a small business outside the industry. If you're looking to stay on top of your biz game, subscribe.
Oh, great. Thank you so much for leaving that review. Love to hear stuff like that. So glad you're enjoying it. So today's guest that we're going to talk about is Pablo Oliveira, the founder, president, and creative director of Nuage Designs, a go-to source for event designers, planners, and distinctive couples around the world searching for the finest in custom event rentals, particularly couture linen, accessories, and furniture. And Pablo has dressed the tables for royal weddings, inaugural events, and a very well-known wedding for Chelsea Clinton. He also tells a great story about that. And I want to urge all of you to listen to the full interview if you haven't yet. It's so interesting that, even though, I don't know, we've done over 60 interviews, something like that, every single one of them has such unique inspiration and education. And Pablo did not disappoint, was definitely another one. So, Melissa, what was a topic in the interview that grabbed your attention?
I've been having a lot of conversations lately about authentically growing your business. And that's with a lot of, different clients and colleagues. Things are definitely changing. There's kind of a switch from all of this picture perfect Instagram world to really just authentically being you and going back to what's truly what you are and who you are. So when he talks about working with what you have and working with the capital as it became available, and that's how he did his business. I felt that was really refreshing because I think we all feel a lot of pressure when we start out to go into debt so we can, hit the ground running and be successful. And I just feel like it's not really always the best thing. And we don't have to feel that pressure. It's okay to grow organically like Pablo did.
I mean, I can relate to that too. There have been some times when I have gone into some debt in order to start something new. And if I could have done that differently, I would have, whether you raise money or something like that. But the way Pablo did it, he made the point that, not only did he not get debt, he did not get any investors. He did it all himself. And he just did it, like you said, Melissa, as the capital became available. And that also takes a certain amount of patience. I know, speaking for myself, when I get a big new idea, like even this podcast, for example, I was going along real happy, doing real well with the music business. I got this idea for this podcast in the wedding industry. And when I finally made the decision, I'm going to go for it, I wanted the thing to be just totally, like rocking within a couple of months. And the idea of just giving it that space. Because I want to say too that even though, again, we get the idea, we want to, go borrow the money and make things happen. It's like by also giving yourself the space, it's not that we're going to be late or someone else is going to get the idea before us. I believe it also opens up the creativity even more. And even though Pablo and I did not specifically talk about that aspect of it, I would bet anything, but that by going at the pace he was going, he was able to deal with a certain limited amount of issues at a time because, again, he didn't have this huge influx of capital to just dive in and do a million things at one time. So I think there's a lot of benefits the way he did it.
Oh, I agree. But I think it applies to every part of doing business. It applies to, how we grow online and we get our followers on Instagram. It applies to, how we get our clients and the idea that what comes to us is what we're meant to have. And we don't need to have it all. We don't have to push that pressure out on our staff and our team and our marriages. Like we can take it day by day and step by step and have our businesses built on solid footing. That is so much more sustainable than, this idea of, getting all this money and buying followers and paying somebody to write like fake blogs for us. Like there's so much more power in taking it slowly and letting it grow with its own feet, right?
Yes, I completely agree with that. And also something kind of related to this that he also got into in terms of how he's building his business and, what does he want to do next? And he was saying that right now his passion is to learn everything about his business that he did not know before. Now, when he first said that, I thought, well, what is he talking about? It's his business. He built it. He manages it. What is it that he does not know? And it's really interesting what he got into, for example, and I want to make a point too. He said that everything you do in your business is part of the creative process. It's all connected. So he wants to get into every piece of it, and he looks at it as a creative process versus, oh, this is such a pain. This is the business side. It's taking away from my creativity. No, it is all connected. Don't you think?
I agree. Absolutely. And I think that he even talks about how he's talking to the laundry people. He's in the nuts and bolts of it. And I think with how much everything changes drastically with our economy and it changes with the way that we all communicate all the time, if we do step away, I think that can actually be one of the biggest detriments. And so it's really cool to see him be so hands-on in all the different areas. And that goes back to his mentor. He talked about how his mentor would grab the Windex and the paper towel and he would clean the windows himself. He wasn't, ordering people around. And I think that really had an impact on Pablo and the way that he manages his business now.
Yeah, it's humbling.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that he saw. That and that in the interview, everybody, if you haven't listened to it, it's such a great part of the story, what Melissa is referring to. And I don't want to give away the rest of it, the punchline, basically. But it was a great story when he saw his mentor, who basically owned a company doing the windows, and you'll get the rest of it later. But yeah, coming back to what you were saying about how even how he spends a lot of time even with his laundry team, and he said because they bring great insight as to the ins and the outs of what happens not only in the laundry but in the whole company. And that really struck me because, yeah, why wouldn't they? Even though we're running our companies, we're not down there on the street level in a sense that a lot of people who work for us are, and they are seeing things that we may not necessarily be aware of. And he also mentioned that when he brings in a new fabric, and this is interesting, when he brings in a new fabric, he first interviews the people who are going to be handling the product. And that was the word he used, interviews. And so these are the people within his own company and maybe any contractors that he works with. And he says that basically some of the best ideas that he gets in terms of also designing the workspace as well as new fabrics come from his own employees.
I think that is so interesting. And there is so much power if we listen to the people who are helping us do our business. They have so much insight that we really could never have because so much of the time our eye is on the big picture or the bottom line or the XYZ. And they're the ones actually, in the trenches. They're the ones that are doing all of that work. And I think that is a space that we really should invest our energy. I have a client who is a fantastic rental company out of the Bay Area. And he spends time in all of the offices. Like he goes to dispatch and he works there and he hangs out with them for, a week or two at a time. And then he'll go work with the sales team and hang out with them. He's not holed up in an office somewhere. And I think there's a lot of power there.
That's right. And this makes me think about, it was a story that I did tell in my conversation with him, that when I was going to Boston University for business, and I had gotten into this kind of extra class situation where it was a small group of people in a class being led by a major consultant. And I remember that he told us, and we ended up doing this as kind of part of the class, is that companies would hire him in order, and the example I'm speaking of was, it was a hospital, and there were inefficiencies in the OR, in the operating room, and so this consultant professor of mine was hired, his company, to go in and help to figure out what are these inefficiencies, how could they be more productive. And the interesting thing is that, and he had us do this with him, is that he does this on a regular basis. He created a questionnaire, his company created, and we went in, our whole class and some of his people, and we went and interviewed the nurses in the operating room about all of these various aspects of how it works, how the operational side of the operating room works, and got a lot of opinions for them. And he basically said he then wrote up all of their opinions and with some conclusions and handed it in to the president of the company who hired him to do this. And so even at that level, this really does go on in the big world out there, where you're going to get some of the best ideas from the people who are working on the line, the employees.
Absolutely.
And I'm also thinking, this is something that I do in my company. We also do it with the podcast, with the Wedding Biz, Melissa and I and Christy, who's on the team, is we have these weekly conference calls. And I also do it in the music business. And I think that that's another way, thinking of what Pablo said, to stay in touch with what is going on at all levels of the company, and to see, does anyone have any ideas? And so we will have a specific agenda, but we're always leaving space. It's like, what else, or what else are you noticing? And we'll brainstorm a lot. And some of the best ideas that I get running these companies is during these conference calls with the people on my team. So I think that as entrepreneurs, we are tempted, and maybe we even feel the responsibility, maybe an obligation to be the one that comes up with all the brainstorms and figures out all the big stuff. But no, I mean, we really need to include the people who work for us.
I think that it makes you want to focus on making sure that the teams that you do have are outstanding. I mean, you're really only as good as your weakest link. And I think that is reflective of the ideas that your company puts forth. And that's coming from the people you hire. So there's a lot of focus on making sure that your team is completely dependable and reflective of you and your business.
That's right. So definitely, if you haven't, go back and listen to Pablo's interview. It was such a wonderful conversation. And as we get ready to wrap up, want to mention that I am getting ready to go to San Francisco next week. That's right. Just got back from New York. Now I'm going to the opposite coast, still putting together appointments. I'll mention next week who I'm going to be meeting with, but I'm very excited to be getting into that market with all the wonderful professionals there. And also, Melissa, you want to talk about any reminders to get more information?
Yeah, if you guys would leave us a review, we would love you forever. But also, we will be sending out a guide that is a follow-up to these episodes, because there is so much more that everybody has to share with us that inspires us to give to your business. So if you go to our website, theweddingbiz.com, you can sign up for our mailing list. It's also available in our Instagram link at Wedding Biz Show. You can just click our link in profile, a tray will pop up, and you can sign up for our mailing list there. If you have not followed us on Instagram already, please do. That is where we connect with our listeners on a daily basis.
That's right. And earlier I mentioned that we're going to have an announcement in the next month or two about someone very special joining the network. And I want to say that right now, Julie Sabatino, the stylish bride, we're getting great feedback on her show. If you just go, obviously, to our Instagram, our website, but also you can go directly to theweddingbiznetwork.com to check that out. Next week's release is a very special one. Ines and Veronica DeSanto, a leading designer of bridal and evening couture gowns. That was such another special conversation. We went in some very wonderful, beautiful directions in this episode, so be sure to tune in next week. It is such a special one. So again, everyone, thank you so much for listening to The Next Level, as well as The Wedding Biz. We are Melissa and Andy, and we'll catch you next week.